Now I know you're just itching to build an array-based list, and we will soon. But before we do that, just for the sake of really good scholarship, let's compare and contrast arrays and classes. So when it comes to implementing a data structure, say a list or a set or a map or any other number of things, both arrays and classes can be used to organize a bunch of memory boxes. Now, they have different flavors. So for example, the planet class, we have a bunch of named fields. And for example, here I've constructed a planet Earth that has a string name and a double mass. By contrast, arrays, as we've noted, are a sequence of numbered memory boxes. Now, for arrays, they have to be all the same type, and if we want to access them, we use bracket notation, and classes, they could be all different types, and we access them using dot notation. In both cases, though, we have a fixed number of memory boxes that can never change, at least in the Java language. Other languages may be more permissive. So let's imagine what's really different about that. What philosophically is really important here? Well, one really big difference is that with arrays, we can actually compute the indices we want at runtime. So imagine the following. We construct an integer array, like so, and then we ask our user, what index do you want? So if we try running this program, which I'm not going to do live, but it would say, what index do you want? And we compile and run this program, and maybe we type in 2. So now we have this index of interest 2 that was not known at compile time, and then we can say, hey, give me back item number 2 from this array, and when we print it out, we'll get 102. By contrast, with classes, we cannot compute those at runtime. So for example, suppose we have a field of interest mass, and then we actually try to get back that field of interest. So in this case, rather than asking the user, I'm just having the string hard-coded in here into this field. And in this case, what happens when we try to do earth field of interest, the class says no. The compiler says no. You cannot say earth field of interest. That is forbidden. The reason is that's just how Java works. You cannot throw in a particular field you want and get it back. That's just how the language is designed. It will say array required, but instead a planet was found. Now you might try and say, I'm going to be extra clever. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use dot notation, because I know that's what's supposed to happen with classes. But in this case, when I say earth.field of interest, then I'll get, I don't know what you mean. I tried to find something called field of interest that's part of the planet class. But as you note, I have mass, I have name, I do not have field of interest. So in Java, you just can't do that. Now, I'm kind of lying because there is technically a way of doing that. And if you want, you can click this link and learn all about something called the Reflections API, but it's not something that's considered good style. So ultimately, in Java, when you're using a class, the only easy way to access a member of class is with what I'll call hard-coded dot notation. So for example, if I want to get back mass, I can only do it by saying p.mass. I can't do p.field of interest or p braces field of interest. It won't work. And so the Java compiler, ultimately the idea here is it doesn't treat something on either side of a dot as an expression. It won't actually evaluate this thing, and thus it won't work. And if you're curious about these kind of philosophical issues, like if you're the kind of person who looks at this and says, there's something deep here and something cool, I encourage you to later take a compilers or a programming languages course, which will really go into the philosophy of these things in more depth. Now, it is possible. I'll just make a quick note though. You can do funny things if you really want. And the reason that Java doesn't let you do this, just to mention this philosophically, is that it keeps our code simple. Reflection leads to ugly code, strange code. If Java actually let you do this, it would cause a lot of headaches. And so the Java designer said no. And they decided, well, if you really want, you can use the Reflections API, but everybody knows, I know, you now know, that using reflection for this kind of purpose is just considered terrible style. And the reason is simply that with big programs, it's just an extra thing you have to think about. So the language was built to restrict the choices you could make, which again is one of the strongest arguments in the favor of Java. All right, that's it. So into these set of videos, next we'll start building an array-based list, and I hope you like the philosophy.